Imagine waking up to a quiet morning. The sky pale, the air cold, the streets still. You step outside, and something feels wrong. No children laughing, no merchants shouting, only the sound of coughing behind a closed door and the toll of a distant bell. This was how it began, not with an army, not with an invasion, but with something unseen. The year was 1347. Merchant ships arrived at the port of Sicily, their sails torn, decks silent, and rats crawling below. When dockworkers climbed aboard, they found death waiting for them. The authorities ordered the ships burned, but it was already too late. The rats had escaped. Those rats carried fleas, and those fleas carried an invisible killer, called Yersinia pestis. From Sicily, it spread to Italy, from Italy to France, like fire racing through dry grass. People whispered it was God's punishment. Others blamed bad air or the stars themselves. But no one understood the truth. The smallest creature on Earth had brought empires to their knees. You're watching Sun Guru, where history speaks and empires whisper their final secrets. The year was 1347, when 12 ships from the Black Sea arrived at the port of Messina, Italy. Dockworkers expected goods, spices, silks, and treasures. But when they boarded, they found a nightmare. The sailors were either dead or dying, covered in strange black boils that oozed blood and pus. Panic spread through the docks like wildfire. The authorities ordered the ships burned and driven away, believing they could contain the curse. But the damage was already done. The rats had slipped ashore. Inside their fur were fleas, so small no one noticed, carrying the seed of the deadliest pandemic in human history. Within days, the city of Messina fell silent. Bells tolled every hour for the dead. Ships that escaped Messina carried the plague to every corner of Europe, from Marseille to Genoa, from Venice to Barcelona. Europe had been warned, but no one truly understood what was coming. The world was about to change, forever. When the ships of death reached Europe's shores, the plague found its new home. From the harbors of Italy to the crowded streets of France, whispers of a strange sickness spread faster than the wind. At first, people thought it was a curse, a punishment for their sins. Then the coughing began. Fever followed, then black swellings, buboes, on the neck and under the arms. Within 3 days, the victim's body turned dark as the blood beneath. The skin began to rot. Doctors came with their long bird-like masks, stuffed with herbs. The only protection they knew. They burned herbs in homes, carried crosses, and prayed, but death did not listen. Cities shut their gates. No one in, no one out. Inside, fear became madness. Families abandoned their own, afraid, even to touch their loved ones. And outside, the rats kept running, spreading death from street to street. Europe had seen wars, famines, and crusades, but never anything like this. This was not just a disease. It was the end of an age. As the plague swept across Europe, cities that once rang with laughter now echoed only with the sound of death. In Florence, one of the richest cities in the world, entire families vanished within days. Houses stood open, tables still set, candles still burning, but no one left alive to eat or pray. Priests stopped visiting the dying. Grave diggers refused to work. The dead lay in the streets, stacked in carts, waiting for burial that never came. No one had time to mourn. No one dared to touch the dead. In some towns, they built massive pits, thousands of bodies thrown in together, without names or prayers. Chroniclers called them the cities of silence. Trade stopped. Markets closed. Bells tolled so often that their ropes were thin and broke. Even the birds seemed to vanish from the sky. Europe was collapsing, not from war, but from something too small to see. And yet, the plague was still spreading, faster, darker, unstoppable. The age of faith and beauty had fallen into the age of fear and silence. In the summer of 1348, a single ship sailed into the port of Dorset, England. It carried no treasure, only death. Within days, the sickness spread to the countryside, from villages to towns, from towns to London itself. London, the beating heart of medieval Europe, became a city of fear. Doctors in long black robes moved through the streets, their beaked masks filled with herbs. They tried everything: vinegar, fire, even bloodletting, but the plague laughed at their efforts. The rich fled to the countryside, leaving the poor behind to die. Bodies filled the alleys so quickly that carts could not carry them all. Church bells rang day and night, a sound that soon became the music of mourning. Children were left orphaned. Streets were lined with burning piles of clothes and herbs to cleanse the air. Even the river Thames carried the stench of the dead. And yet, the people still prayed, still hoped, still believed it would end. But the Black Death was not finished, not yet. It was only gathering strength. Those who survived the first wave of the Black Death didn't feel lucky, they felt haunted. Every breath could be the last. Every cough could mean doom. Neighbors stopped speaking. Friends crossed the street to avoid one another. Families locked themselves inside their homes, sealing the doors with wax and prayers. The will to live became stronger than the bonds of love. Fear gave birth to superstition. People blamed witches, beggars, and even foreigners for the plague. Flagellants, bands of men who whipped themselves, marched from town to town, begging God for mercy. Their cries echoed through villages like ghostly hymns in the night. Others turned to sin instead of prayer, drinking, stealing, and abandoning their faith entirely. The church, once the pillar of hope, began to crumble. Why did God allow this? They asked, and no one had an answer. For many, the plague had not just killed people, it had killed faith itself. When the plague's fury finally began to fade, Europe was no longer the same world. Fields lay empty, harvests rotted. Half the workers who once toiled the land were gone. The few who survived realized their labor was now worth more than gold. For the first time in centuries, the poor began to challenge the powerful. Feudal lords, once untouchable, found their lands empty and their wealth crumbling. In towns, merchants took control, trade routes reopened, prices soared, and the middle class was born. But rebuilding came with pain. Scarcity led to riots. Cities burned in chaos and rebellion. The Black Death had turned Europe into a furnace, destroying the old, forging something new. Art changed. Faith changed. Even the way people saw life, and death was reborn from ashes. The world had been on fire, and from that fire, a new dawn began to rise. But the scars would remain forever, written not in books, but in the bones of Europe itself. The Black Death didn't just kill millions, it killed the old world itself. Faith, once unshakable, was now filled with questions. How could God allow so much suffering? Many turned away from the church, seeking answers in science and reason. From this pain, the seeds of the Renaissance began to grow. Artists painted not just saints, but humanity, flawed, emotional, alive. Doctors started to question old beliefs, searching for cures through observation, not prayer. The plague had changed the way people saw life, short, fragile, but meaningful. Even today, the echoes of that terror shape how we fight. Disease, fear, and death. Every pandemic, every mask, every quarantine, all trace their roots to the lessons of 1347. The Black Death ended an age of darkness and began a new chapter of human resilience. Because from every shadow of history, light always finds a way to return. You've been watching Sun Guru. If history moves you, subscribe, because the past still whispers in every breath of today.